Weren't there only 4 data types in Python? I'm sorry to tell you, but there are more. In this lesson, I am going to introduce you into complex data types. Yes, these are not so complex as they sound. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about the 3 most important complex data types in Python: list, tuples, and dictionaries. And if you paid attention, I have mentioned lists in the data types lesson. Complex data types are basically when other pieces of data come together to form a bigger piece of data. Let's take my phone. My phone has different properties like the brand, the size, the screen, the camera. All these different properties are data. They can be simple data. For example, the brand would be a string. We could create for each property of my phone a single variable and assign the value that we want to that variable, but that would be a mess. Why can't we create a single variable that contains all the properties of my phone? Well, that's possible, and I am going to show you how. Let's start with lists. To create a list, let's create a variable that contains this list. Let's name the variable phone because we want to write down the properties of my phone. We're going to combine the single properties into one single piece of data. To create a list, we use brackets. How do we set now the properties for my phone? My phone is an iPhone, so inside the brackets, create a string and set it equal to whatever your phone brand is. In my case, Apple. Just write down that. You created your list and it already has the first property of your phone. So now, how do I set the second property for my phone? Like the model. Go at the end of the list and set a comma. And now we can write down the second property. iPhone SE. If I now print the phone, I will get Apple iPhone SE. And let's set another property that would be the camera, like 12 megapixels. Let's set another one that says if the iPhone is new or it's already used. For that, we are going to use true or false. The iPhone is already used, so false. And the last property that we are going to add is the height of the iPhone, 15. Print the phone and you get Apple iPhone SE, 12 megapixels camera. Is the iPhone new? No, the iPhone is not new. The height of the iPhone is 15 centimeters. This is basically how a list works. But what is a tuple? Tuples are basically the same as a list. The only difference is that a list can be modified later on in your code. So there can be elements added to the list, elements removed from the list, changing the values from the list, but a tuple cannot. And to write down a tuple, we use parentheses instead of brackets. So what are dictionaries? Dictionaries are basically the same as a list. The only difference is that instead of an index, we have a key. We have a key and an assigned value to that key. So it's easier to access the elements because we can give that key a name, for example, brand, and set this key equal to a value. And later on, we can call the dictionary and we can say, okay, print out the dictionary and the brand, and you will get Apple. So it's easier to recognize which element you are printing or you are getting. To create a dictionary, we use the curly brackets, I think it's called. Now hit enter to open the dictionary, and inside the dictionary, we are going to create a key and a value. So let's create the first key. It's going to be brand and set it equal to Apple. So just like that, the name of the key that you want to give it, in this case, it's brand, and then set it equal, but to set it equal, we use the double point, or I don't know how it's called. And then the value that we want to assign, Apple. Now we set a comma and go to the next line. Model is equal to iPhone SE. Now set a comma, camera, this is going to be equal to 12 megapixels. Another property, new, is going to be false. And the last property is going to be height. This is going to be 15. So there we got our dictionary. Keep in mind that when you enter the last element of your dictionary, you do not need to set a comma there. So the last element does not need a comma. Okay, so in this lesson, you learned what complex data types are, what are the difference between lists, tuples, and dictionaries, and how can use them in different showcases. I promise to you the next lesson is going to be a bit easier.